The black ships came without warning. Captain Nextel stood on the bridge of the Shadowclaw, watching Earth grow larger through the viewing screen. The blue and green planet looked peaceful from space, too peaceful for what they planned to do. "Many humans live down there," asked his second officer, Lieutenant Kekstar. 7 billion, Nextel replied. His voice was calm, but something felt wrong in his chest. "It's more than enough for the hunting preserves." General Kethver's voice crackled through the communication system. "All ships begin orbital positions. The Veltar Empire's greatest hunt begins today. These humans will provide sport for our nobles for generations." Nextel touched the controls with his long fingers. His skin was gray and tough like leather. His eyes were large and dark, built for seeing in low light. Like all Veltar, he was tall and strong. Their species had conquered 12 worlds before Earth, but none of those worlds had fought back like this one would. Down on Earth's surface, Marine Sergeant Daeho Kim crouched behind the ruins of what used to be a coffee shop in Seoul. The alien ships had been visible in the sky for 3 days. Everyone knew something terrible was coming. "Sergeant, movement on the north side," whispered Private Jiwoo Park. She was young, maybe 22, but her eyes were sharp. She had been studying military tactics before the invasion began. Daeho raised his rifle and looked through the scope. 3 strange figures moved between the broken buildings. They were tall, much taller than humans. Their skin looked gray in the morning light. Each one carried weapons that hummed with energy. "First contact," Daeho said quietly into his radio. "Enemy scouts in Sector 7, Corporal Mensuli's voice came back through the static. "Copy that. I have eyes on 2 more groups moving east. They are spreading out like they are looking for something. Or someone," added G-Wu. The aliens moved with purpose, carried small devices that beeped and flashed. Nextor had given each hunting party motion sensors and heat detectors. Finding humans should be easy work, but Daeho and his team had spent weeks learning how to hide. They covered themselves with mud and debris. They moved only when the wind blew, to mask their sounds. They had studied every hunting video they could find online before the internet went dark. "They think we are animals," Daeho whispered to his team. "Let us show them what animals can do when cornered." From his ship above, Nixul watched the first hunting parties descend. Each group had orders to capture 10 humans alive. The rest could be killed for sport. It seemed simple enough. The Veltar had done this before on other worlds. Most species surrendered quickly when they saw the size of the invasion fleet. Those that fought usually broke within days. Humans looked small and weak. Their technology was primitive. Their weapons used chemical explosives instead of energy. But something bothered Nextel as he watched the hunt begin. On other worlds, the native species ran when they saw Veltar soldiers. They hid and waited to be found. Humans were different. They were hunting back. The first sign came when Hunter Pack 7 went silent. Nextal tried to raise them on communications, but got no answer. He sent a second pack to investigate. They found the remains an hour later. 3 Veltar soldiers lay dead in an alley. Someone had used their own plasma grenades against them. "Impossible," growled General Kethfer when he heard the report. "Send more hunters." These primitives got lucky, but luck had nothing to do with it. Minsu had been an engineering student before the invasion. He understood how alien weapons worked, just by watching them fire. When the first hunting party got close to their hiding spot, he had been ready. "Giwu, can you see the leader?" Daeho had asked during that first fight. "The tall one with the red marks on his armor. Range 200 meters. Minsu, that device he carries? Some kind of scanner? If I can get close enough, I can turn it into a bomb." It had taken 30 minutes of careful movement. Minsu crawled through rubble and broken glass, while Daeho and Jiwoo provided distraction. When the improvised explosive went off, it took out not just the scanner, but the entire hunting party from orbit. Nexil felt something he had never experienced before. These humans were not running in terror. They were not begging for mercy. They were fighting with intelligence and courage, and they were winning. More reports came in throughout the day. Hunter Pack 3 had walked into an ambush. Someone had dropped part of a building on Hunter Pack 12. Hunter Pack 5 had been picked off one by snipers they never saw by sunset. The Veltar had lost more soldiers in one day than in the previous 3 planetary conquests combined. Sir Lieutenant Kekstar said quietly, "Perhaps we should reconsider our approach." General Kethver's anger could be heard across all communication channels. "No retreat, no mercy. These humans will learn their place. Send in the warhounds." Nexol felt his stomach twist. Warhounds were not soldiers. They were beasts, genetic monsters created to terrorize and kill. Using them meant this was no longer a hunt, it was becoming a war. As night fell over Seoul, Daeho gathered his surviving team members. They had started the day with 12 soldiers. Now only 8 remained, but they had learned something important. "The aliens can be killed," he told his people. "They bleed, they make mistakes, and they do not expect us to fight back." Shh. Cleaned her rifle as she spoke. "They think like predators. It's always attacking, never defending. We can use that." Minsu held up a piece of alien technology he had salvaged. "Their weapons are powerful, but simple. I can modify them, make them work for us instead of against us." High above them, Nextol made a decision that would change everything. Instead of returning to his ship, he took a small scout craft down to the planet's surface. He told himself he needed to see these humans up close, to understand how they had killed so many of his people. But deep inside, he knew the real reason. For the first time in his life, he wanted to understand an enemy. Instead of simply destroying them, the scout craft's engine made too much noise. Minsu heard it coming from kilometers away. He had prepared for this moment. "Sergeant, single ship coming in low from the west. Can you bring it down?" Minsu smiled grimly. "Give me 2 minutes." The improvised surface-to-air missile was built. From spare parts and alien explosives, it was crude but effective. Nextla's ship shook violently as the missile struck its rear engines. He managed to crash land in the mountains outside Seoul, but his ship was ruined. As he pulled himself from the wreckage, Nexul expected to die. Every other species would have killed him immediately. Instead, he heard a soft voice speaking in the human language. "Do not move. You are hurt." Nexul looked up to see a human female approaching him. She was small, maybe half his size. Her hands held medical supplies instead of weapons. Her eyes showed concern, not hatred. "I am Sujin Han," she said in broken Velter words. "I am doctor. I help." For the first time in his life, Nexul met someone who wanted to heal him instead of hurt him. As consciousness faded, he wondered what kind of species would show mercy to their enemies. He was about to find out. Sujin Han had seen many wounded soldiers in the past week, but never one like this. The alien lay unconscious on the medical table in her hidden cave. His gray skin felt cold under her hands as she cleaned the cuts on his arms. Green blood seeped from a deep wound in his shoulder. His breathing was slow but steady. "Doctor, are you sure about this?" asked Wan Hojeng, one of the resistance fighters who helped carry the alien to safety. "It could be dangerous when he wakes up." Sujin looked up from her work. "I took an oath. To heal, that oath does not care what species my patient is." She had been a trauma surgeon at Seoul National Hospital before the invasion. When the aliens came, she could have run to the mountains with the other civilians. Instead, she stayed to help wounded resistance fighters. Her small cave clinic had saved dozens of lives. Now, she was trying to save an enemy. Next, U's eyes opened. Slowly, the first thing he saw was a small human female checking the bandages on his arm. She moved with gentle hands, careful not to cause pain. He tried to sit up, but she placed a firm hand on his chest. "No move," she said in broken Veltar. Still hurt, Nexthor stared at her. In all his years as a soldier, no enemy had ever shown him kindness. They begged for mercy or fought to the death. They did not heal their captors. "Why?" he asked in his own language. Sujin did not understand the word, but she heard the confusion in his voice. She pointed to herself. "Sujin." Dr. Vinci pointed to him. "Patient." Over the next 3 days, they learned to communicate. Sujin taught him basic Korean words. Nexul shared simple phrases in Veltar. She showed him pictures from her medical books. He drew diagrams to explain alien technology. Meanwhile, The war above ground was getting worse. General Kethfer had released the warhounds across Seoul. These creatures were twice the size of humans, with razor-sharp claws and enhanced senses. They could track a human from kilometers away. Daeho watched one of the beasts through his binoculars. It moved between the ruins like a giant wolf, sniffing for human scent. Its red eyes glowed in the darkness. How many people were in that apartment? Building? He asked. G-Wu, double quotes, 50, maybe 60? Families with children. The warhound had found their hiding place. Screams echoed through the night as people tried to run. Most did not make it far. We have to do something, Minsu said, his hands clenched into fists. We cannot just watch. But what could they do? Their rifles barely scratched the warhounds. The creatures healed from most wounds in minutes. Even explosives only slowed them down. That was when Taejino found them. He appeared out of the shadows like a ghost. Young, maybe 25, with intelligent eyes and quick movements. Before the invasion, he had been a history student at Seoul National University. You are Sergeant Kim? He asked Daeho. How wants to know? Someone who has been watching you fight. Someone who thinks you are doing it wrong. Jiwoo raised her rifle, but Taejon showed no fear. The warhounds have one weakness, he continued. They rely on their senses, smell, hearing, heat vision. But humans have fought creatures like this before. When asked Daeho, every time in history when the strong tried to crush the weak, the Romans thought they were unstoppable until Germanic tribes used the forests against them. The Mongols seemed invincible until weather and terrain defeated them. These aliens think like every conqueror in history. They believe size and strength always win. Taejon led them to an abandoned subway station. Inside, he had set up a workshop, filled with homemade weapons and tactical maps.
Back to the warhounds.
Hunt by tracking heat and scent, he explained. But what if we give them too much to track? What if we confuse their senses? His plan was brilliant. They would use the city's old steam pipes to create heat signatures everywhere. Chemical compounds from destroyed factories would mask human scent. And when the warhounds came to investigate, they would find traps instead of prey. It worked better than anyone hoped. The first warhound died when it stepped on a pressure plate that dropped it into a pit filled with sharpened rebar. The second was killed by an improvised flamethrower that Minsu built from spare parts. The third fell victim to an explosive trap triggered by its own body heat. News of the warhound death spread quickly through the resistance network. For the first time since the invasion began, humans had killed the aliens' most feared weapons. In her cave clinic, Sujin heard the distant explosions. She looked at Nexel, who was now able to sit up and walk short distances. What that sound? She asked in Veltar. Nexul listened carefully. He knew the sound of plasma weapons and explosions. But these were different. Cruder, more desperate. Our people fight, he said in Korean. His pronunciation was getting better. Yes, always fight. Nexul had been thinking about this for days. On every world the Veltar conquered, the native species eventually stopped fighting. They accepted defeat when they realized resistance was hopeless. But humans were different. The more pressure applied, the harder they fought back. Each defeat made them more creative, not less. Why no surrender? He asked. Sujin sat down beside him. She pulled out a small photograph from her pocket, showed a man and 2 young children, all smiling. My family, she said quietly. Husband, son, daughter. She pointed to the ceiling, indicating the world above. All dead. First day, next door, felt something twist in his chest. He had seen death before. He had caused death many times. But looking at Sujin's face as she talked about her family, he felt something new. Guilt. I'm sorry, he said in Korean. Sujin looked at him with surprise. In all the alien communications they had intercepted, never once had they heard an apology. She reached out and touched his hand. You not kill them, other ones kill them, but Nexul knew the truth. He was part of this invasion. He had helped plan the attacks. Even if he had not pulled the trigger, he was responsible for her loss. Ain't help you, he said suddenly. I help humans. Sujin studied his face. She had learned to read his expressions over the past few days. He was serious, Why? Nextol thought about the question. Why would he betray his own species? Why would he help the enemies of his empire? The answer came when he remembered watching her work. Sujin could have let him die. She could have tortured him for information. She could have handed him over to the resistance fighters who wanted revenge. Instead, she had saved his life without asking for anything in return. Because you good, he said finally. Your people good, my people wrong. That night, Nexthul made his first act of betrayal. He told Sujin about the Warhound patrol routes. She passed the information to Wenho, who carried it to Daeho's team. The next morning, when 3 more Warhounds died in carefully planned ambushes, General Kethber's rage could be heard across the entire Veltar fleet. But Nexthal felt something he had never experienced before as he watched Sujin treat wounded resistance fighters. He felt proud. For the first time in his life, he was fighting for something greater than conquest. He was fighting for people who showed mercy to their enemies and kindness to strangers. He was fighting for what was right. High above. Captain Zexamore began his investigation into how the humans were getting information about Veltar operations. He suspected a traitor among their ranks. He was right to be suspicious. Captain Zexamore stood in the command center of the Veltar flagship, staring at reports that made no sense. In 3 days, the humans had destroyed 12 warhounds, captured 2 hunting parties alive, and somehow knew exactly where to strike. Next, sir, they are predicting our movements, said Lieutenant Hexaville. Every trap we set, they avoid. Every ambush we plan, they counter. General Kethfer slammed his fist on the control panel. Someone is feeding them information. Find the traitor. Zexamore nodded grimly. He had his suspicions. His old friend Nexlo had been missing for 5 days. His crashed ship had been found, but no body. Either he was dead, or he had been captured. Or worse, he had chosen to help the enemy. Down in Seoul. Daeho gathered his expanded team around a map spread on the floor of an abandoned school. The resistance had grown from 8 fighters to nearly 50 in just 1 week. The orbital bombardment starts tomorrow, he announced. Intelligence says they will target the subway stations first. Taejon looked up from the alien communication device they had captured. How do we know this? Daeho glanced at Wenho, who had become their messenger between the different resistance cells. Wenho knew about Sujin's unusual patient, but they had agreed to keep that secret for now. We have a source, Daeho said simply. A good one. The source was Nexthul, who now spent his days in Sujin's cave learning about human culture while providing crucial intelligence about Veltar plans. Your people fight strange, he told Sujin as she changed the bandage on his shoulder. His Korean was improving rapidly. How strange. Most species fight to win. Humans fight to protect. He pointed to a photograph on her makeshift desk. It showed children playing in a park before the invasion. Always protect others first. Sujin smiled sadly. Maybe that's why we lose so much? No, Nexthul said firmly. At why you win? He was learning about human history through books and videos that Wenho brought from abandoned libraries. The stories amazed him. Humans had faced extinction many times throughout their history. Wars, plagues, natural disasters. But they always survived by helping each other. Tell me about Veltar, Sujin asked. Your homeworld, Nexthul, was quiet for a long moment. Beautiful once. Green seas, purple skies. But we made it into weapon factory. All planets we conquer become weapon factories. You miss it? Miss what it was, not what it became? That afternoon, the orbital bombardment began. The first target was the subway station where Taejun had set up his workshop. But the workshop was empty. Every piece of equipment, every weapon, every map had been moved during the night. The second target was a hospital where civilians were hiding. The hospital was empty too. All the patients and medical supplies had been evacuated hours before the attack. General Kethfer watched the bombardment from his command ship, growing more furious with each wasted shot. They knew, he growled. They knew exactly what we were going to hit. Meanwhile, Daeho's team was executing their most daring plan yet. While the Veltar focused on bombing empty buildings, the humans struck at their real target. The communication relay station, Minsu, had been studying Veltar technology for weeks, helped by detailed explanations from Nexthul that Sujin passed along. He understood how their systems worked better than most Veltar engineers. The relay processes all communications between ships, he explained to Giwu as they approached the heavily guarded facility. If we can capture it intact, we can listen to everything they say, and if we cannot capture it, then we blow it up and blind half their fleet. The assault was swift and brutal. Taechun's tactical knowledge, combined with intelligence about guard rotations provided by Nexthul, allowed them to neutralize the defenses in minutes. But the real prize came when Minzu and Taejun cracked the communication encryption. Listen to this, Minsu said, playing back a recorded conversation between Veltar officers. The humans are too adaptable, one voice complained. Every tactic we use, they counter within hours. Perhaps we should consider negotiation, suggested another. Negotiation? The first voice was shocked. With prey animals? These prey animals have killed 300 of our soldiers in 10 days. Daeho smiled grimly as he listened. The Veltar were beginning to doubt themselves. But the real breakthrough came when they intercepted a message about a massive troop movement. General Kethfer was sending his entire reserve force to capture a specific target. The target was Sujin's medical facility. They know about her, Wenho said urgently as he brought the news to the cave. Someone told them about the doctor who treats resistance fighters. Sujin looked at Nexul, who was listening to their conversation with growing alarm. I must go, he said, standing up despite his injuries. If they find me here, they will kill everyone. No, Sujin said firmly. You still hurt. This is my choice. Your choice. He gestured around the cave at the wounded fighters she was treating. I not abandon patients. I not abandon you. Nextul felt something break inside his chest. This small human female was willing to die rather than abandon him. No Veltar had ever shown him such loyalty. Then I stay too, he said. I fight with you. You fight against your own people. Nextal looked at the humans around him. A young Gu, who treated him with cautious respect despite knowing he was the enemy. Minsu, who had shared his technical knowledge freely. Wenho, who brought him books and news from the outside world. Taejun, who discussed military history with him as if they were old friends. And Sujin, who had saved his life and asked for nothing in return. My people bomb hospitals and hunt children, he said quietly. These are not my people anymore. You are my people now. The attack came at dawn. Captain Zexamore led 500 Veltar soldiers up the mountain toward Sujin's cave. They expected to find a small medical station defended by a few resistance fighters. Instead, they found a fortress. Daeho had moved his entire force to defend the cave. 50 human fighters had taken positions among the rocks and trees, had rigged explosive traps along every approach route. Taejun had studied the terrain and planned overlapping fields of fire, and for the first time in Veltar history, one of their own officers was fighting against them. Nexthaw stood beside Daeho as the alien soldiers advanced up the mountain. In his hands was a captured Veltar plasma rifle. On his gray skin were the bandages that Sujin had applied with gentle hands. You sure about this? Daeho asked. Nextwell looked back at the cave where Sujin was preparing to treat the wounded. From both sides, she had made it clear that she would heal any injured soldier, human or Veltar, who was brought to her. I sure, he said. The battle began with Zexamore's voice echoing across the mountainside through a loudspeaker. Nixtul, I know you were up there. Come down and face justice for your betrayal. Nixtul picked up a human radio and responded in Veltar, knowing all the soldiers would hear. Justice. You call bombing hospitals justice. You call hunting children justice. His voice carried clearly in the morning air. I found real justice here. I found people who heal instead of hurt, who protect instead of destroy. You have gone insane, Zexamore shouted back. No, Nexol replied. I finally became sane. First shots were fired, and the mountain exploded into war. But this time, Veltar were not hunting helpless prey. They were fighting soldiers who had learned their weaknesses, understood their tactics, and refused to surrender, and leading the defense was one of their own, who had chosen to stand with the fiercest of all enemies, the humans who fought for each other instead of themselves. The battle for Sujin's mountain cave lasted 6 hours. When the smoke cleared, the impossible had happened. The humans had won. Captain Zexamore lay wounded among the rocks, his armor cracked and smoking. At around him, 40 Veltar soldiers were either dead or injured. The rest had retreated down the mountain in confusion and fear. Nextol stood over his former friend, pointing a plasma rifle at his chest. Green blood dripped from cuts on his arms, but his eyes were steady. Kill me then, Zexamore gasped. Finish your betrayal, no? Nixul said quietly. That is not the human way. He stepped aside as Sujin approached with her medical bag. Despite the battle raging around her cave, she had continued treating wounded fighters from both sides. Now she knelt beside the Veltar captain who had come to kill her. You help him? Zexamore asked in disbelief as Sujin began cleaning his wounds. I doctor, she replied in broken Veltar. Help all hurt people. Zexamore stared at her small hands. As they worked to stop his bleeding, no Veltar would show mercy to a defeated enemy. They would either kill or enslave them. But this human female was saving his life. ... Why? He whispered. Sujin looked into his large dark eyes. Because you someone family. Someone miss you if you die. For the first time in his military career, Zexamore felt shame. The victory at the mountain sent shockwaves through the Veltar fleet. General Kethfer received reports that seemed impossible. A major assault force had been defeated by primitive humans led by a traitor. How many ships do we have left? He demanded. 63, sir. Down from 120? How many soldiers? Approximately 4,000. We have lost nearly half our ground forces. The numbers were staggering. In 2 weeks of fighting, the humans had accomplished what no other species had managed. In centuries, they had made the Veltar Empire bleed. But Kethfer was not ready to admit defeat. Instead, he activated the final hunt protocol. Every remaining Veltar soldier on Earth received the same message. No more prisoners, no more mercy. Kill every human you find. Burn their cities. Turn this planet into a wasteland. The message was intercepted by Minsu's communication station. When Deho heard the translation, his face went pale. They are not hunting anymore, he told his gathered fighters. They want genocide. Tajin studied the troop movement reports that were streaming in. Look at this pattern. They are converging on population centers. Seoul, Busan, Daegu, anywhere people might be hiding. How many civilians are we talking about? Asked Jiwoo. Maybe 2 million people scattered across the country. The room fell silent. 50 resistance fighters could not protect 2 million civilians from 4,000 alien soldiers. We need help, Deho said finally. We need allies. Everyone looked at Nexul, who was studying the tactical displays with growing horror. He understood Veltar military doctrine better than anyone. The final hunt protocol meant his former people had abandoned all honor. Other resistance cells? He asked. Maybe 300 fighters total across the whole country, Wenho replied. Not enough? What about other planets? Jiwoo suggested. Other species the Veltar conquered? Nexthul shook his head. All dead or enslaved. Humans only ones to fight back this long. The discussion was interrupted when Sujin entered the command area, followed by an unexpected visitor. Captain Zexamore walked slowly, his injuries still healing, but his eyes were alert. You want to speak? Sujin announced. Deho reached for his weapon, but Nexthal held up a hand. Listen to him, Nexthal said. Please. Zexamore stood in the center of the hostile humans, knowing that any one of them could kill him easily. But something had changed during his 3 days as Sujin's patient. The final hunt protocol is wrong, he said in careful Korean. I have been Veltar soldier for 20 years. I have conquered 6 worlds, but never have I seen anything like this. He gestured around the cave where human and Veltar wounded were being treated in the same beds, by the same medical staff. Your doctor saved my life. She could have let me die. Should have let me die. But she chose mercy. His voice grew stronger. That is not weakness. That is strength we Veltar have forgotten. Taijon leaned forward. What are you saying? I'm saying that some of us remember what honor means. Some of us are sick of being hunters and killers. Some of us want to be something better. The translation caused a stir among the Veltar soldiers who were listening to communications from the mountain. Word spread quickly through the fleet that Captain Zexamore not only surrendered, but was speaking in favor of the humans. Importantly, he was not alone. Lieutenant Hexavol was the first to openly question General Kethver's orders. Sir, the final hunt protocol violates our own military code. You're supposed to be honorable warriors, not genocidal killers. You dare question my orders? Kethver roared. I question orders that make us into monsters. Hexavol replied calmly. Within hours, the Veltar fleet was divided. Nearly half the officers refused to participate in genocide. They did not join the humans, but they also refused to kill civilians. Earth, the crisis deepened when scouts reported massive Veltar forces approaching Sol from 3 directions. The loyal soldiers were following Kethver's orders to exterminate every human in the city. We have maybe 6 hours before they arrive, Deho told his team. Ideas, hit and run attacks? Suggested Gu. They are to spread out, Taejin replied. We cannot be everywhere at once. Minsu was working frantically on a captured Veltar communication system. What if we do not have to be everywhere? What if we can turn their own weapons against them? He had been studying Veltar orbital bombardment systems with help from both Nexol and Zexamore. The weapons were powerful but required ground-based targeting systems. If we can capture the targeting stations, we can redirect their fire, Minsu explained. Make them bomb their own forces instead of civilians. It was a desperate plan, with almost no chance of success. But it was the only plan they had. The assault teams moved out at sunset. Deho led one group toward the eastern targeting station. Giwu took a second team west. Taejon headed south with the largest force, and in the most dangerous mission. Of all, Nexthul and Zexumor went north together. You sure about this? Nexthul asked his former friend as they approached the heavily defended northern station. Sure, no, Zexumor replied. But the human doctor asked me a question I cannot forget. What question? She asked if I have family, someone who would miss me if I died. Zexamore checked his weapon. I told her yes. Then she asked if the human children we are ordered to kill also have families, someone who will miss them. Nexthul nodded grimly. Yeah, and now you understand. Now I understand that a species that shows mercy to its enemies is worth protecting. The 2 Veltar officers approached the targeting station where their former comrades were preparing to rain death on innocent civilians. They knew that after tonight, there would be no going back. They were no longer soldiers of the Veltar Empire. They were protectors of Earth. The first shots of the night battle echoed across the Korean mountains as 4 small teams of humans and their alien allies attempted the impossible to save a planet with nothing but courage, ingenuity, and the unshakable belief that protecting innocent life was worth any sacrifice, even the sacrifice of their own. The northern targeting station was the most heavily defended. 50 Veltar soldiers guarded the facility that would rain death on Sol's hidden civilians. Nexthul and Zexamore crouched in the darkness, watching their former comrades prepare for genocide. Guard rotation changes in 10 minutes, Zexamore whispered. Same pattern we used on 6 other worlds. You sure they will listen to us? Nexthul asked. Some will. Others will try to kill us. Zexamore checked his weapon. The humans taught me something important. Sometimes doing right is more important than staying alive. They moved when the guards changed positions. Nexthul approached the main gate, while Zexamore circled around to the back entrance. Both carried their weapons lowered, showing they came to talk, not fight. Captain Zexamore. The guard at the front gate stared in surprise. Sir, we thought you were dead. I was dead. Zexamore replied. Dead to honor, dead to mercy. The humans brought me back to life. Meanwhile, across the city, the other teams were making their moves. Daeho's assault on the eastern station. It began with Minsu's improvised explosives. The blast took out the main power generator, throwing the facility into darkness. Human fighters poured through the breach, moving with the speed and precision of soldiers who knew they were fighting for their families' lives. Targeting computer is in the central bunker, Daeho shouted over the sound of gunfire. Gi-woo, can you reach it? Give me 30 seconds, she replied. Sprinting through the smoke with two other fighters, the Veltar soldiers inside were confused and disorganized. They had expected to bomb defenseless civilians, not fight desperate humans who seemed to appear from nowhere. When Ji-woo reached the targeting computer, she found Minsu's technical notes waiting for her. Redirect fire to coordinates, ... She read the alien symbols carefully. Target: Veltar ground forces approaching Seoul from the east. Fingers worked quickly on the alien controls. If this worked, the orbital bombardment would hit the enemy soldiers instead of innocent people. If it failed, millions would die. At the southern station, Tajun faced the heaviest resistance. The Veltar commander there had received word about the rebellion in the fleet and was taking no chances. Surround the facility, he ordered his 20 fighters. No direct assault. He cut off their power and wait for them to surrender. But Tajun had studied military history his entire life. He knew how defenders had held impossible positions through the ages. The key was not winning. The key was lasting long enough for help to arrive. Turn the station into a fortress, he told his team. Use their own defenses against them. Make them pay for every meter. His fighters moved with practiced efficiency. Barricades appeared in strategic locations. Crossfire zones were established. Improvised explosives were placed at key choke points. When the Veltar assault began, they found themselves attacking a position that seemed designed to kill attackers. Every corridor became a death trap. Every room hid snipers who knew the terrain perfectly. But the most important battle was happening at the western station, where something unprecedented was occurring. The Veltar soldiers there had heard the radio broadcasts from Nexol and Zexamore. They had listened to their officers talking about honor and mercy. When Ji-woo's small team approached their position, they did not attack. They surrendered. We cannot do this anymore, their commander told Ji-woo in broken Korean. Cannot kill children, cannot bomb hospitals. It's not what Veltar warrior is supposed to be. Ji-woo stared at the alien soldiers laying down their weapons. In all her tactical planning, she had never considered the possibility that the enemy might simply refuse to fight. You help us? She asked. We help you save innocent lives, the commander replied. Human and Veltar both. Back at the northern station, Nixul and Zexamore had gathered 12 soldiers who were willing to listen. But 38 others remained loyal to General Kethfer's orders. You are traitors, snarled the station commander. I will execute you myself. Execute us for refusing to murder children, Zexamore asked. What have we become? The standoff lasted 15 minutes. Veltar soldiers faced each other with weapons drawn, divided by a question that struck at the heart of their identity. Were they honorable warriors or genocidal killers? The decision came when Wonho's voice crackled over a human radio, speaking, In Veltar, all stations, this is Seoul Resistance Command. Civilian evacuation is complete. Pete, all civilians are safe in the underground shelters. You are now targeting empty buildings. The lie was brilliant. Wonho had learned enough Veltar to deliver the message convincingly. But more importantly, he understood Veltar psychology. They wanted to believe they were warriors, not murderers. The station commander hesitated. If the civilians were already safe, then the bombardment served no military purpose. It would be destruction, for the sake of destruction. That hesitation was all Zexamore needed. Stand down, he ordered the loyalist soldiers. There is no honor in bombing empty buildings. Do not give orders here, the commander snapped. Then let the orbital command give orders, Zexamore replied. He activated the station's communication system. Command, this is targeting Station North. Requesting confirmation of civilian targets. The response came from Lieutenant Hexaval, who had taken control of communications on the flagship. Station North. No civilian targets confirmed. Redirect bombardment to military targets only. Coordinates follow. The coordinates were for General Kethfer's own ground forces. Across Seoul. The 4 targeting stations synchronized their fire. Orbital weapons designed to kill millions of innocent people instead struck at the Veltar soldiers who had come to commit genocide. The irony was not lost on the surviving soldiers. They had been saved by the mercy of their intended victims. But the greatest victory was yet to come. General Kethfer, watching his ground forces destroyed by his own orbital weapons, made a fatal mistake. In his rage, he ordered all remaining ships to descend to the planet's surface for direct attack. If we cannot bomb them from orbit, we will kill them face to face, he declared. It was exactly what the humans had been hoping for. Minsu's captured. Communication equipment had been broadcasting continuously throughout the battle. Every word spoken, every order given, every act of mercy shown was transmitted to Veltar ships across the solar system. The fleet was no longer united. Ship after ship refused to follow Kethfer's orders for planetary descent. They had seen what happened when honor was abandoned. They had heard their own soldiers choosing mercy over murder. When morning came, only 12 ships remained loyal to General Kethfer. The rest had either joined the rebellion or simply refused to participate in genocide. Sujin emerged from her cave to find the mountain covered with wounded soldiers from both species. Human and Veltar fighters lay side by side being treated by medical staff who saw only patients, not enemies. How many? She asked Wonho. Seoul is safe. Busan is safe. The civilians survived. He smiled tiredly. We won. But next, standing beside a wounded Veltar soldier who had chosen mercy over orders, knew the real victory was something else entirely. For the first time in Veltar history, soldiers had chosen to protect the innocent rather than slaughter them. The human concept of honor had spread like a virus through their ranks, changing everything. The hunt was over. The war was almost finished. Now came the hardest part of all, building peace between species that had been enemies just days before, but if anyone could do it, it would be the humans who had shown mercy to their invaders, and the Veltar, who had chosen to stand beside the fiercest defenders of innocent life in the galaxy. General Kethfer stood alone on the bridge of his flagship, watching his empire crumble. Of the 120 ships that had come to hunt humans, only 12 remained under his command. The rest had either been destroyed or had joined the rebellion led by his own officers. Sir, incoming transmission from the human resistance, reported his last loyal communications officer. Ignore it, Kethfer snarled. Sir, they are requesting a meeting. They want to discuss surrender terms. Kethfer's eyes blazed with fury. Surrender terms? They think they have one? But deep in his heart, he knew the truth. Hey. The humans had done something no species in galactic history had ever accomplished. They had turned a Veltar invasion fleet against itself. Down on Earth's surface, Daeho stood in the ruins of Seoul City Center, surrounded by an impossible sight. Human and Veltar soldiers worked side by side, clearing rubble and rescuing survivors. The species that had come to hunt them were now helping to rebuild their world. The meeting is set for noon, Wonho reported. It's neutral ground. The old Olympic Stadium. Daeho nodded, checking his equipment one final time. This would be the most important conversation in human history. In 2 hours, he would sit across from General Kethfer and decide the fate of both species. But first, he had a promise to keep. He found Sujin in her expanded medical facility, now housed in a real hospital that Veltar engineers had helped repair. She was training alien medics in human medical techniques while human doctors learned Veltar healing methods. Ready for the meeting? She asked, not looking up from her work. As ready as anyone can be for something like this. Daeho watched. Her suture, a wound on a young Veltar soldier who had been injured while protecting human civilians. You should be there. You started all this. Sujin smiled softly. I just treated a patient. You and Nextul did the rest. Speaking of Nextul, he appeared in the doorway, carrying medical supplies. His gray skin bore new scars from the recent battles, but his eyes held something that had not been there when he first crashed on Earth. Hope. General Kethfer is bringing 50 soldiers to the meeting, he reported. Still thinks he can win. Through force, can he? Asked Jiwoo, who had been listening from nearby. Nextool considered the question carefully. Not against us, not anymore. But he can still hurt innocent people if he chooses to die fighting. That was the real danger. Kethfer commanded enough firepower to level Seoul before he could be stopped. The meeting was not about victory or defeat. It was about preventing a massacre. 2 hours later, the Olympic Stadium filled with an audience, unlike any in human history. Representatives from every resistance cell sat beside Veltar officers who had joined the rebellion. In the center of the field, 2 tables faced each other across 10 meters of empty ground. General Kethfer arrived with his honor guard, 50 soldiers in full battle armor. They moved with military precision, weapons ready, eyes scanning for threats. Daeho's delegation was smaller, but more diverse. Besides himself, the human side included Jiwoo, Minsu, Taejun, and Wonho. But they were not alone. Nextool and Zexamor sat beside them, along with 3 other Veltar officers who had chosen to stand with humanity. You bring traitors too? A peace meeting? Kethfer demanded as he took his seat. I bring friends, Daeho replied calmly. The same friends who helped save both our species from your madness? The insult struck home, but Kethfer controlled his anger. You think you have won something here? My 12 ships can still turn this planet into a wasteland? Yes, they can, Daeho agreed. The question is, what would that accomplish? For the next hour, they talked. Kethfer demanded unconditional surrender. The humans offered coexistence. The Veltar general spoke of honor and strength. The human sergeant talked about mercy and wisdom. It was Taejun who finally asked the question that mattered. General, why did you really come to Earth? To hunt humans for sport, Kethfer answered immediately. No, Taejun said quietly. You came because your empire is dying. Your people have forgotten how to create, how to build, how to grow. You only know how to destroy and consume. Earth was just another meal for a starving beast. The words hit like physical blows. Round the stadium, Veltar officers nodded slowly. They had all seen the decay in their civilization, the endless need for new conquests to feed an empire that produced nothing of value. But look around you, Taejun continued, gesturing to the mixed crowds in the stadium. In 3 weeks, humans and Veltar have built something new. Medical techniques that save lives, engineering solutions that repair damage, military tactics that protect instead of destroy. Nextool stood up, his voice carrying clearly across the field. General, I have learned something on this world. True strength is not the power to kill. True strength is the courage to heal. You have been poisoned by their weakness, Kethfer spat. Have I? Nextall challenged. Then explain how this weakness defeated the mighty Veltar Empire. Explain how primitive humans with crude weapons destroyed half our fleet. The question hung in the air like a blade. Everyone in the stadium knew the answer. The humans had one, because they fought for something greater than themselves. They protected each other, supported each other, sacrificed for each other. The Veltar had fought only for conquest. In personal glory, Minsu spoke for the first time during the meeting. We captured your communications equipment weeks. Oh, go. We have been listening to your empire's internal messages. He activated a recording device. Kethfer's own voice filled the stadium, speaking to his fleet commanders. Continue the bombardment until nothing moves. I do not care about military targets. Kill everything. Burn everything. Show the galaxy what happens to species that resist. The Veltar Empire. The recording ended in silence. Even Kethfer's own soldiers looked uncomfortable. That is not the voice of a warrior, said Captain Zexamor. That is the voice of a monster. Kethfer's control finally snapped. He lunged across the table at Nextool, a curved blade appearing in his hand. I will kill you myself, traitor. Nextor was ready. The 2 Veltar crashed to the ground, rolling and fighting with desperate fury. Round them, soldiers from both sides raised weapons, the peace meeting on the verge of becoming a bloodbath. Stop. Sujin's voice cut through the chaos like a sword. She walked calmly into the space between the armed forces. A small human woman facing down hundreds of warriors. In her hands was her medical bag. "No more killing," she said simply.
Nice.
"No more death. We choose healing." Nexel and Kethver were still grappling on the ground. The general's blade was inches from Nexthal's throat, but instead of finishing the kill, Kethver found himself staring into Sujin's eyes. "You," he gasped. "You were the one who started this, the one who saved the traitor." "Saved a person who was hurt," Sujin replied. "Just like I will save you if you are hurt, even after everything I have done. Even then." For the first time in his long military career, General Kethver felt something break inside his chest. This small human female, whose world he had tried to destroy, was offering him mercy. Slowly, he released his weapon and stepped back from Nexul. "I do not understand your species," he said quietly. "We do not understand yours either," Sujin replied. "But we can learn." The formal surrender came an hour later. General Kethver's remaining ships would leave Earth's orbit and return to Veltar space. But they would not go alone. Volunteer crews of humans and reform-minded Veltar would accompany them. Their mission, to spread the concepts of mercy, cooperation, and protection throughout the Veltar Empire. It would take years, maybe decades, but the work had already begun. 6 months later, Nexel stood on a hill overlooking Seoul, watching the city rebuild. Human and Veltar workers labored together on construction projects. Mixed medical teams treated patients in hospitals that served both species. Children from both worlds played together in parks that had once been battlefields. Sujin joined him on the hill, carrying 2 cups of tea. "Any regrets?" she asked. Nexul thought about his old life, the endless conquests, the hollow victories, the slow death of everything good in Veltar society. "Only one," he said. "That it took so long to find this place." "This place?" Home, Nexlu replied. "I finally found home." Below them, the first joint human Veltar colony ship was under construction. Soon, representatives of both species would travel to the stars together, not as conquerors and conquered, but as partners in the greatest adventure of all. The adventure of building something better than either species could create alone in the medical district. Captain Zexamore finished his shift as a security officer. Protecting a hospital that treated both humans and Veltar, he had traded his weapons of war for tools of peace. In the orbital shipyards, Minsu and his Veltar engineering partner completed designs for vessels that could explore instead of destroy. In the military academy, Gu and Tajun taught mixed classes of human and Veltar officers about tactics that protected instead of conquered. And in hospitals, across Earth and beyond, Sujin's teachings spread like ripples in a pond. The idea that healing was stronger than hurting, that mercy was mightier than violence, that the fiercest warriors were those who chose to stand beside the innocent. Instead of standing over the defeated, the hunt was over. The Wa